Hello and welcome to Ideas with Diana. This is September 16th, 2025. Today I'd like to address a certain issue regarding what's going on in the internet. The concern that I have with what's going on in the internet and even with free speech involves something that's very important to me because basically um, when I did Ideas with Diana, we had an episode where basically were um, we were censured, we were suspended for a month, and it was during the current political discussion over something. Basically, we had a 3-person show, and at part of the show we gave a segment on history, segment on current events. I did a segment on finances to help college students to help understand finances, and then we also did a segment on employment about what's a sweetheart contract, what's not, some other things to watch out for. And while all during those times, many of us were raised basically that when we watched TV news, my family was a CBS NBC's family with Walter Cronkite, Edward R. Murrow, David Huntley, and David Brinkley. A friend of mine was an NBC family. Another friend of mine was an NBC ABC family. Later, I became basically also part of a Fox family, a Newsmax family, and I have Fox News showing behind me. There's a reason for this is because this is becoming a very special day. A friend of mine just told me about this last night. I said, "Well, did you hear what happened with Jimmy Kimmel and ABC and other things?" I said, "Well, no, I didn't." I said, "I haven't watched the news that much," and I said, "I just saw the headline," and well, today basically I noticed some Democrats are passing a bill for basically protecting free speech and weaponization of free speech from the executive. And I believe that free speech shouldn't be weaponized, so I called my state senator office support for the Senate Democrats bill. But this is the reason why, because although I don't like the comments said about people basically on Facebook, especially I think it's very dangerous of people in the Democrat Party, Liberal Party. They said, "You got reserved, shame on you." They probably were speaking off the top of the cuff, but they weren't thinking. But in responsible positions, you should never wish anyone dead. Even when we had our political discussions on Ideas with Diana as a radio show and even as a podcast, we do follow certain standards similar to the Edward R. Murrow, David Huntley, David Brinkley, and Walter Cronkite standards when we discuss stuff. The thing is, what happens though is when one person read a statement saying, well, some said, "Well, we could do this the easy way or the hard way." As a professional, it brings concern though, because during the 70s and other things, excuse me, there were issues on TV that couldn't be shown at the time, and sometimes the FCC was needed to make a decision and contact news organizations. Basically, I won't mention names, but excuse me, Jan. But what happened was the threat was basically to spike a news item if it was deemed dangerous to national security or something else or national security needs. However, back then, there wasn't no such thing needed as saying we're going to do this the easy way or the hard way. Normally, it was a discussion, and it was basically when after discussion, basically this was done. People were allowed to do things. People were allowed to do other things like that, though. And yet, what happens when I see about what's happening with the thing there like that, though, and stuff. It's like basically it makes you wonder. Because we really shouldn't have to go to a point where we have to go to TV suspensions and other suspensions like that just because of some of the separation divide that exists in our current country in regarding thought, where people either say, well, you either agree with this side or you either agree with this side, and those of us in the middle, um, we're caught like we're like caught between being between fighting between two trenches like that, just trying to cross the street or cross a bridge. That shouldn't be that way. I mean, and this is the reason why, again, like applying the idea of William F. Buckley, to those who are doing politicalization, regardless of what side you're on, or basically, um, I have one word. It's the word William F. Buckley used in many years ago when he started New Republic. Stop, stop, stop. This overly politicized attack, whether it's by either party or even whether it's by attorney generals calling grand juries regarding federal matters. Again, um, we have our country is based on a constitution of a system of courts. Federal matters are supposed to be tried in federal courts. Local matters are supposed to be tried in local courts. You don't try a president in local court or city court, like was done in the last election. Oh God, I mean, regardless of whether the president's Republican, Democrat, from Venus, from Pluto, from Saturn, whatever. No, no. Um, and this is why with this politicalization thing, it's not just one group. It's many, and that's why I say stop. What happens though? We want to restore free speech. We want to restore our country. We got to stop this weaponization of weaponization of justice. Um, and when there's weaponization of justice, I put justice in quotation marks because that is not justice. That is something else. And I know I'm not going to say a word for it, but it's something else. But with the Senate bill, I do support it. However, I do want to mention though that basically all sides need to stop acting like little kids playing in the sandbox. And they got to get back to being respectable adults. Like today, behind me, there are Democrats who are acting as respectable adults. However, regarding to other aspects like National Guard in different states, I do support that because with the crime issue, there are many people who've asked for National Guards, especially in Chicago, because when I lived in Evanston, people in Evanston are very law-abiding. Even though sometimes, again, they get a little bit too affected with power. What happens, that's why I used to bring down the Wisconsin progressive to sort of try to humble them, and also why I supported the Chicago Leader when that was in existence, and that though, and that because they did help keep things going, and even the Daily Northwestern as well. Now, what happens so is the thing is, what does free speech mean? Free speech means like basically what I finally heard one Democrat from Pennsylvania say, or one senator from Pennsylvania is, free speech doesn't mean that you have a right to advocate violence against someone. Doesn't that mean you have a right to advocate fire in a crowded theater, which goes back to Supreme Court decisions. It does mean that basically you do have a right to speak, and even with Congress, and people have a right to express different viewpoints, and part of the process is to listen and evaluate different viewpoints, but not those that hurt people. However, in regard with this Charlie Kirk, I was very distressed when I heard about people saying, "My God, everything should have been dead." No, it was a. And what I did was I posted a video where Charlie Kirk did a debate with a college student. It's titled Charlie Kirk debates 25 liberal college students, and they all were in a circle. It's like 20 plus 1 is done by SAN News, and that those, I guess, Straight and Nail News. And what it was about, he had like a clock where basically you had like 15, 20 minutes per session he talked. And what happens at first, these students when I came to they're very hostile, because it's like they had preconceived ideas as to what it's like, and they said, "Well, hello, nice to meet you. I'm Terry Kirk." And then at one person said, "What's your name?" She said, "Name." But others came up and said, and then some of these students, when they came up multiple times afterwards. They realized, "Well, wait a minute, you're not really openly claim to be, but the thing is, I do disagree with you views, but I can understand why, because he set definitions as to why do I think this way, why do I think that way, and that's the same with me. One question is basically about abortion. What is abortion and other things, and basically another one was what is a woman, and he mentioned where some of the students went into circular reasoning, and they mentioned what he did too. So Brian Winston came and says, well, what is it? I said, well, actually what it means to be a woman is basically how you wish to conduct yourself sociologically, living wise, demeanor, corporeal. So he said, then his eyes lit up, and the student had trouble first understand why his eyes lit up, because as a conservative, that means the light bulb has been turned on. It actually was a very intelligent argument. It was a framed argument. It wasn't circular. It was based on specific criteria, and actually he agreed with those criteria. And so many students were very surprised. It's like, see, and that's what the problem when you get political weaponization. You get people who have preconceived ideas, but then when they can actually talk without someone sort of watching over and speaking for, and actually get to where they can get this, specific ideas that aren't circular, they're their own thoughts and not their own talking points. You can really get a lot of stuff done. However, I think we do need some sort of free speech bill, because the problem, to protect free speech, the problem is, as we observed during the election, um, there's certain aspects with certain types of city trials and other things during elections about weaponization of the legal process, or sometimes commonly referred as lawfare, and now it's some concern about weaponization of the free speech process. Two longs do not make a right, and that's from the Bible, and also that's from many other religious texts and many other religions across the world. The Bible is not the first, but two longs do not make a right. Even people realize the Hammurabi code, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. It's like Gandhi said, an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth makes the world deaf, and dumb, like that though. So. We do need to get back to talking more like adults, and with past comments that were said, we don't want to go back to what third world countries do, where people have to walk up a recant and say, I have sinned, I have no. We move on and forward, but we set standards, and as standards that are constitutionally based, and excuse me, and standards that are professionally based. So what happens though, we need to have these, and if we have to pass a bill providing weaponization of free speech, from the executive and from different committees and different organizations within the federal government, I guess it's time. But what I would say though is, please try to, even in political context, please try to remember, the Walter Cronkite rule, and even like the Ed Sullivan rule, as well as, because even like when George Carlin performed on Ed Sullivan supported many progressive performers, many liberal performers at the time, and George Carlin performed on Ed Sullivan many times, and so did and also there's another comedian that performed on the Smothers Brothers show. He gave a lot of different things, and there's one skit that he did where he said, well, he is claimed for causing the Smothers Brothers to close, because he said, well, he's talking about certain political topic of the day. He says, well, he says, they got the administration by the new testicles, and that was enough to cause CBS to close the show down. And Smothers Brothers have filed a lawsuit and won the lawsuit. But the thing is, what happened though was, even at that time, many people don't realize that a lot of these shows were actually done on videotape. They were filmed in Los Angeles and then sent to New York and reviewed before they were even aired. So it's not a case where a network was caught by surprise. However, but the thing is, that it's a case of reactionary decision making, and that's where we have to get back to professionalism, because reactionary decision making doesn't help anybody. Um, it's a case of people who are given power that use power too powerfully. As I just talked with this phone call to my state senator about this. So I do support the Democrats' bill, but I do support it with consideration that there has to be professional standards that are constitutionally based. Also, the standards have to be made by bipartisan, no, this time I'll say multipartisan Republicans, Democrats, and also those of us who are caught in the middle between the two groups, polarization, the middle group. Which includes partly the mega group and partly those in the middle group who are concerned about that both parties have become too polarized. So, and people wonder why basically um, why both parties lost in elections, because many people vote Republican. Really didn't vote Republican. They voted. It was the people from the Democrats who switched. That were in the middle, who switched over and joined the MAGA, and the MAGA is actually those Republican Party who are frustrated with with some of the uniparty thinking that exists on both edges of the political party spectrum. So they form an official third party, but they know running as a third party would mean death in the United States, because no third party candidate has ever been elected. So that's why basically the union basically support a candidate who's running as a Republican, whose people realize that their voter base was not from here, not from the Republican. It was actually from the middle. And the middle is saying that basically stop with the political weaponization by lawfare, by administration, by other things. Stop, like William F. Buckley would say. And so but we do need some sort of protections now due to weaponization, especially for administration, but also, consequently, we need politicalization from weaponization by lawfare as well. So what I'd say is that the free speech bill is a good step for stopping politicalization by administrations, but we also need to stop politicalization from lawfare at the federal and also big city level like New York and other cities. Yet we do also need to restore safety to our cities, which is why I do support the National Guard coming out and helping out where basically things haven't been able to be done. However, we do have to follow constitutional process. Um, and as always, I don't support violence of any form, and I don't support political weaponization of any form. Any group that does that, I'm out. Just let you know, I'm out if you do political weaponization of violence. This has been Ideas with Diana. And the best way to reach me is, as I said before, YouTube, Facebook, X, Pinterest, and Blue Sky. And thank you for listening.